Chapter 16. The moment she first glimpsed the island of Sicily, Kay Corleone gasped. Michael looked up from the book he was reading, Peyton Place, which Kay had bought after her mother, Deanna Dunn, and several women from the Las Vegas Junior League had all recommended it, though she'd finished it hours ago and thought it was lousy. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Kay said. My God, you never told me how beautiful it is. He set the book down and leaned across Kay, toward the window. It is beautiful. A ridge of snow-capped mountains ringed the walled city of Palermo, visible from the air as the bounty of spires and carved stone and scrolled balconies. It was February, but the Mediterranean was impossibly blue and crested with the gold of the sun. The smoothness of the surface of the water marred only by what seemed the tiniest of vibration, like that of a glass of wine atop a softly playing radio. The runway was on a spit of land northwest of the city. Among the countless things Michael had said to dissuade Kay from coming here on their vacation was that, statistically, this was one of the most dangerous airports in the world. Most of the time, he himself flew into Rome and took a train and ferry here. As the plane banked low, over the water, so close to a small gray fishing boat she could see the men's unshaven faces, Kay, who'd been to Europe before, but always by sea, was thrilled she'd insisted they fly all the way here. Only when the plane's shadow appeared on the boulders of the coastline did a hot pang of panic shoot through her. My babies! But a pang was all it was. Seconds later, they touched down, a little harder than a person might like, but an essentially uneventful landing. After all these years, Kay marveled. Here I am in Sicily for the first time. Birthplace of Venus, Michael said, rubbing her thigh. Goddess of love. For Kay's whole adult life, she had been hearing about all the things that were and weren't Sicilian. All the things she could never understand because she wasn't Sicilian. Michael had been here numerous times on business and had even, for 3 years, lived here. The least he could do was show her the place. A week's worth of sightseeing and a second week holed up in a romantic resort carved into a mountainside near Taormina. He owed her that much, at least that much. As the plane taxied toward the terminal, Kay noticed a precisely parked row of tiny Italian cars in the grass infield. Beside the cars, 30 or so people, many with bread or flowers tucked under their arms, stood behind a waist-high rope, smiling and waving at the arriving airplane. In front of the rope were four uniformed carabinieri, two with gleaming silver swords on their shoulders, two with their swords sheathed and machine guns held across their chests. People you know? Kay said. She'd been joking, but Michael nodded. Friends, he said. Friends of friends, really. There's supposed to be a surprise party at a restaurant on a beach at Mondello. She gave him a look. I know, he said. I thought we had an understanding. We do. I'm not the one surprising you. No more surprises from me. That's the deal. As far as the portion of the world I don't control, you're going to have to take it up with God. What's that supposed to mean? Was he making a crack about her becoming Catholic? Nothing, he said. Look, I wasn't sure it was going to happen. I let you know about it as soon as I saw that it was. It would have been just as much a surprise if the surprise party I told you about ended up not happening, right? She shook her head and patted his knee. He did need a vacation. Her too. She put her hand on his thigh. We can't even check into the hotel and take a shower first? If that's what you really want, he said, which was a way he had of saying no. Try to look surprised at any rate, for their benefit. When the plane stopped, The carabinieri, without machine guns, sheathed their swords too, and hurried across the tarmac. A stewardess told the passengers to keep their seats. What's going on? Kay whispered. No idea. Michael swiveled his head, almost imperceptibly, but enough to make eye contact with Al Neri, 2 rows behind him. That Michael had agreed to go on this vacation with only one bodyguard, albeit his best and most trusted one, seemed to be a clear sign that things had gotten better. And, true to Michael's word, they'd been on airplanes or in airports for almost 2 whole days, and it really had been as if Nettie wasn't there. The hatch opened, the steps came down. The head stewardess and the carabinieri had a conversation that, though she'd like to think she understood Italian, Kay couldn't quite make out. The stewardess turned and faced the passengers. May I have your attention? She said in perfect English. Would Mr. and Mrs. Michael Corleone please identify yourselves? She had less of an accent than most of Michael's employees. She'd even Americanized the pronunciation of Corleone. Nettie stood and walked toward the front of the plane. The stewardess asked if he was Mr. Corleone, and Nettie didn't say anything. Only after he passed Michael and Kay did Michael raise his hand. Kay followed suit. Kay kept her lips still. Surprise, she muttered. I'm sure it's nothing, Michael said. Just logistics. Nettie started speaking with the stewardess in Italian, something about protection and about how Michael Corleone was an important man in America and something about rudeness and hospitality, all in hushed enough voices that Kay still couldn't figure out what was going on. Then Nettie turned toward Michael and Kay and made a patting gesture. There and there, Michael nodded. The stewardess asked that Mr. and Mrs. Corleone remain seated until the other passengers disembarked. Nettie took an empty seat toward the front of the plane and stayed there. What's going on? Kay whispered. It's going to be fine, Michael said. That wasn't what I asked you. When everyone else had left the plane, the 2 carabinieri came on board. Nettie intercepted them. They had a quick whispered conversation, then proceeded down the aisle and stood next to Michael and Kay. In Italian, Michael welcomed them. One of the men seemed to know him. Michael gestured for them to have a seat. They remained standing. They explained that reliable sources had indicated that the welcoming party in Mondello was not certainly, but quite possibly a trap, that it would be inadvisable for him and his wife to set foot on Sicilian soil at this time. Reliable sources? Michael repeated in Italian. The men's faces were implacable. Yes, the one who seemed to know him said in English. Michael glanced at Nettie, who mouthed the word Chicago. What could he possibly have meant by that? Maybe he'd mouthed something else, someone's name. Michael got up and nodded toward the front of the plane. The carabinieri followed him, and they resumed their discussion there, in whispers, out of her earshot. Kay didn't know whether to be terrified or furious. Outside, the waving people milled around, gesturing toward the airplane in various demonstrative ways. Several got into their cars and drove away. Kay pulled down her window shade. Finally, Michael clapped the 2 carabinieri on their backs. Bene, he said, no longer whispering. A che ora e il prossimo volo per Roma? The carabinieri, who seemed to know him, beamed. We are pleasurable to report, said one, again in English, that you are upon it. And with that, the men left. Not only were Michael and Kay and Nettie already on the next flight to Rome, it turned out to be a private flight too. The stewardess claimed it had been supposed to happen anyway, though they struggled to explain why. Deadhead, Michael said. That's the word you're looking for. I beg your pardon? Said the stewardess with the perfect English. Nell'inglese la parola è deadhead. Deadhead, she said. Why, thank you. She seemed offended that he'd resorted to Italian. She and the other stewardess cleaned the cabin and left. This is so like you, Kay said to Michael. You never wanted to go to Sicily, and now you're getting your way. Kay, he said, you can't be serious. Think of your mother, she said, thinking of the trunk full of gifts sitting somewhere in the airplane. Preparing it had been her reason to live for months. The reason everyone agreed, even the doctors, that she'd recovered so well from her brush with death. I'll have it unloaded, he said. I know people who can get it all to the right people. Of course you do. Kay, I feel awful flying all the way here and leaving the kids. For what? For nothing. Michael didn't say anything. He didn't have to. He'd wanted to go someplace and take the kids. That kind of vacation would have been a vacation for him. The hardest thing he'd have to do was sit still to be buried in the sand. Kate'd have spent her time tending to Anthony and Marie, which she loved doing but was not a vacation. For 2 years she'd selflessly done what Michael needed her to do. She'd had to raise the kids almost as if she were a widow, including holding them through the hours of inconsolable crying the year he'd been so caught up in whatever he was trying to do in Cuba that he never even came home for Christmas. She still hadn't gone back to teaching and was starting to fear she never would. On her own, she'd coordinated the move to Las Vegas. Then she'd taken on the even bigger job of designing and overseeing the construction of the whole complex in Lake Tahoe, their house, a bandstand for entertaining, and preliminary architecturally harmonious plans for houses for the Hagans, for Connie and Ed Federici, for Fredo and Diana Dunn, for Al Neri, even a little bungalow for guests. Kay had been surprised by how much she'd enjoyed building a house, actually. The countless details and decisions, the chance to undertake the ultimate shopping spree, all for the greater good of her whole family. Still, it was work. She had asked almost nothing from Michael except to go where she'd wanted to go on vacation, just the two of them. What are we going to do now? Kay said. Turn around and go home? We don't have to go home. This kind of thing, if you'll recall, was a part of why I didn't want to go with you to Sicily. For God's sake, Michael, this is a murder threat we're running away from. We're not running. Right, we're flying. That's not what I mean. And it's not so much a threat as a precaution. Look, Kay, if there's one thing I've been completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Steadfast, right? If there's one thing I've been steadfast about, it's been protecting my family. Kay looked away and didn't say anything. He was steadfast about everything, actually. His good traits and his bad. It was the best and the worst thing about him. Those men, he said, the Carabinieri, one of them is Calogero Tomasino, the son of an old friend of my father's. I've had dealings with his father and with him too. I trust him. We're certainly in no danger now, and probably wouldn't have been at all. Again, just a precaution. Please understand. And you, at any rate, would never have been in any danger, obviously. It's the code not to. He stopped himself. Harm the wives or children? She said, rolling her eyes. Which no doubt goes double in Sicily, which I can't, of course, hope to understand, can I? Because I'm not Sicilian? Michael didn't answer her. He looked like hell. Maybe it was just a flight. She couldn't admit it now, but if she really understood the ordeal involved in flying from Las Vegas to Palermo, she'd have probably gone along with going to Hawaii or Acapulco. The pilots got back on board. Natty went up to the cabin to talk to them. Moments later, he took a seat, far away from Kay and Michael. The cars and people were gone from the tarmac. The plane took off. You actually wouldn't understand, Michael finally said. How could you? Oh, Christ, Kay said. She got up and sat far away from Michael. Twice in a matter of moments he had provoked her to use the Lord's name in vain. He let her go, but she knew it would work eventually. Her silence. Just because he so expertly wielded silence as a weapon didn't mean that he was invulnerable to it himself, especially from her. She sat on the right side of the plane and patiently watched the Italian coast ease by. After about an hour, he came to her. Is this seat taken? He said. So did you finish your book? I did, he said. I thought it was pretty good, actually. A nice escape. If you say so. The book he'd taken to read was Edwin O'Connor's The Last Hurrah, which Kay had given him for Christmas. He kept nodding off. Not long after she'd finished her book, he'd picked it up, and she'd taken his. Kay thought The Last Hurrah was the best thing she'd ever read about city politics. She was appalled he hadn't loved it. And yes, the seat's taken. Kay, he said, the reason you wouldn't understand is because I didn't. He closed his eyes. Maybe this, too, his struggling for words, had to do with the long flight. But there was something about him now that seemed more shaken up than exhausted. Because, he said, it's true that I haven't been entirely. He let out what started as a frustrated sigh and finished as a soft, agonized moan. Michael, he said, I want to tell you some things, he said. I have to tell you some things. Most of the time, she looked at him and hardly recognized the man she'd fallen in love with. He had had his face smashed, then fixed. His hair was shot through with gray, and, though she told herself it was her imagination, he'd become a dead ringer for his father. But there was the same look in his eyes now as he'd had years ago, on a New Hampshire golf course on a warm, starry night, when he told her what he'd done during the war, things he'd never told anyone, and he'd sobbed in her arms. Angry as she'd been, suddenly she just melted. I'd like that, she said, voice quavering. Thank you. She patted the seat beside her. He sat. I'm sorry, he said. Don't be, she said, taking his hand. No apologies. Just talk to me. They stayed in Rome only long enough to sleep off the jet lag and have a magnificent meal at a restaurant Kay had been to years before her parents. The next day, with Michael still asleep upstairs, she spoke to the hotel concierge herself and arranged a reservation at a resort in the Swiss Alps. He helped her rent a plane, too, for Michael to fly them there, which she knew he'd love. She'd never been to the Alps, but when they had flown over them on the way here, she'd promised herself she'd go someday. Turned out, someday would be tomorrow. When she finished, she turned and saw Al Neri sitting in a leather chair across the lobby, smoking and chomping on a sweet roll. She shook her head and he nodded. She told the concierge she'd been mistaken. She needed two rooms, preferably not adjoining. He sighed and made an exasperated gesture, but dialed the phone and was able to change the reservation. Kay got an espresso from the hotel bar. The hotel had a glassed-in courtyard, and on her way to get a table, a man about her age whistled at her. A younger man next to him raised an eyebrow and called her beautiful. She tried not to react, but she was a happy woman, and in truth they'd made her happier. She was only 32 years old. Yes, they were Italian, but it was still nice to think of herself as a woman able to summon blurted compliments from strange men. She took a seat by herself, bathed in that pink-yellow light so distinct to Rome. The day Michael had proposed to her, he warned Kay that they couldn't be equal partners. Kay had protested. Clearly Michael's father confided in his mother, no? True, Michael had said, but his mother's first loyalty had always been to his father for 40 years. If things worked out as well with Dom, Michael had said, maybe someday he'd tell her a few things she didn't really want to hear. Turned out that someday had been yesterday. Kay should probably be furious, frightened, or at least unmoored. She wasn't, despite or maybe even because of the things Michael had told her. Kay couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this happy. It was irrational as hell, but then again, all happiness was irrational. Her husband was a murderer. He'd fled to Sicily not because he had been unjustly accused of murdering those two men, the police captain and the dope kingpin, but because he'd shot them, one in the head and the other in the heart and throat. 3 years after those killings, Michael came back to America. When he and Kay got together, he confessed that he'd been with a woman, yes, while he was gone, but only because he never thought he'd see Kay again, and at any rate not for 6 months. What he'd failed to mention until yesterday was that the woman, a teenage peasant girl named Apollonia, had been his wife. The reason it had been 6 months was because 6 months earlier she'd been blown sky high in a booby-trapped Alfa Romeo. His brother Sonny did not die in a car wreck. He had been shot to hamburger at a toll booth. Everything that Tom Hagen had told her 2 years ago, that Michael had ordered the deaths of Carlo, Tessio, Marzini, Tatalia, and a host of related others, was true. The day Hagen had told her those things, and told her that if Michael ever found out about it, Hagen would be a dead man, had felt like the worst day of her life. Yesterday, when Michael had trusted her enough to tell her those things himself, had hardly been a good day. But it hadn't been the worst day of her life. No one could have been happy to have heard those things had happened. But she was, she realized, elated that he'd told her about them. Kay was shocked but not surprised. A wife knows things. Kay knew who Michael was. From the time they'd first met, he'd been the perfect mix of good boy and bad boy. At Connie's wedding, Kay had blamed the strong red wine for her euphoric lightheadedness, but what had really done it was Michael's deadpan explanation of his family's business. Afterward, when he dragged her into a family photo, 6 years before they got married, Kay felt like she'd been yanked into the cast of a Shakespeare play. She had acted reluctant, but it was acting. She loved it. If she was honest, she had to admit that she had her own secrets, ones she still hadn't confessed to Michael. During his years in hiding, she had a long affair with her history professor at Mount Holyoke. She never thought she'd see Michael again either, that Michael still didn't know about. Deanna Dunn had told her things about Fredo that Kay would never dare mention to Michael, and Kay never had let on that Hagen had told her anything. Kay had fallen in love with Michael the night he told her about the horror of those Pacific islands. Bodies decapitated, incinerated, rotting in hot mud. He told her about the men he'd killed, the raw male violence of it, and the strength this man had shown, not just to survive that, but, in her arms, to allow himself to confide in her, had frankly excited her. He'd murdered men there too, and it had excited her. If Kay had been able to fall in love with a man who'd killed men for his country, to fall in love with him, Kay knew, not in spite of this but because of it. How shocked could she be that he'd killed and had men killed in defense of his own blood? Kay was older now, of course. She was a mother. That changed everything. Everything but the way she felt now. She finished her coffee. Her heart raced. She went back upstairs. She heard Nettie following but didn't turn to watch. Chained the door behind her, drew open the curtains, and flooded the room with light. Michael stirred but didn't wake. Kay got undressed and burrowed under the covers next to him. We're going to the Alps, she whispered. Her heart was going even faster. I don't ski, he said. We're not going skiing, she said. I'm not sure we'll even leave the room. Except for Mass, obviously. He wasn't mocking her. Not even that, she said. I don't have to go every day. Only as she said it did she realize she suddenly didn't feel the need to go every day either. She gave him the details. They'd take a little plane he'd fly himself. They'd stay a week, then go home early, get the kids, and go to Disneyland. She'd cabled a travel agent she knew in New York, and arrangements had been made for that trip too. She seemed amazed she salvaged their vacation so fast. You underestimate me, she said. Do you have any idea how far ahead of schedule we are on things at Lake Tahoe? I'm really going to fly over the Alps? I thought you'd love it, she said. If it's too challenging, or I do, he said. I love it. He squeezed her hip. She squirmed in warm, carnal assent. This was always where things had been the best for them, in bed. It was not at all unlikely he'd get her pregnant. The way she felt now, for the first time in a long time, that wouldn't have been unwelcome. Lately, in the rare times they'd made love at all, Michael had been on top, or she had, and they'd stayed in the position where they'd started, executing the act like some grim household errand. This time, as they had when they arrived, too, they did it the way Kay liked best, switching positions often, him on top, then her. Then she turned around and faced away from him, her eyes clenched closed, grinding into him, happy enough that it might have been enough, just that. But he surprised her by not coming. He rose from the bed and lifted her onto the marble sink. The cold stones sent jagged shivers through her, and she looped her arms around his neck. She threw back her head. Michael's hand slid over the curves of her breasts and trailed lightly across her ribs, and she shivered again, harder this time. Perfect height. When she could feel how close he was, she put her fingertips gently to his sweat-slicked chest. She didn't have to say anything. He knew to stop and pull out, and she hurried to the bed and got on all fours. As Michael entered her, she heard a growl escape from her throat. The sun on her skin seemed baking, burning, scorching. The sheets had come loose from the corners, revealing the bare stripped mattress beneath. Kay's arms gave out, and her face fell against the wadded sheet. The next thing she knew, so fast she was barely aware of how it happened, she was on top of him again. He was pulling her hard into him, and the look on his face, his openness, his vulnerability, his ardor and attention to her, to what she liked and how she liked it, that was what did it for her. It was painful, more like electroshock than orgasm, and she felt like she was giving off sunlight, like it was radiating off of her, a haze of undulating waves. Somewhere in the trembling rills of aftershocks, she felt his spasms below her, far below her, and at some other point, it could have been 10 seconds or 10 years, Kay felt herself tumbling exhausted onto the sodden mattress. It had not been painful at all, of course. Michael blew gently on her dripping back. He touched her, lightly, a single finger. He traced the words, I love you, over and over. Her breathing and her beating heart finally slowed. Suddenly, a torrent of words came out of her, a long and grateful expression of love. Only when she stopped did she realize she'd said it all in Italian. Where the hell did you learn all that? Michael said, laughing in amazement. No idea whatsoever, she said in English, rolling over and kissing him. That was. He put a finger to her lips. They smiled. He was right. No need for words. Mary wore her new Mickey Mouse ears, Cinderella dress, and Davy Crockett moccasins everywhere, every day. She was 3 years old and thought the bear she had danced with was real. Anthony went around belting out note-perfect renditions of the songs that had been featured at various rides and attractions. He had the spooky ability to hear a song once and perform it. This had caused him no small amount of trouble at his kindergarten, but Kay was sure this skill would bode well for the boy in the long run. In fact, her father, an opera buff, planned to hire someone to give Anthony singing lessons for his next birthday. They were lucky kids, Kay supposed, but she felt even luckier to have them. Could Michael possibly know how much he was missing by being gone so much? But he loved them too. He had taken an obvious, visceral delight taking them to Disneyland. Any time Michael was home, he absolutely doted on Mary. Anthony was harder for him, but it was unabashed love for Anthony that made Michael's befuddled regard of his son so heartbreaking. Several days after their vacation, Michael had to go to New York, both for business and to see how his mother, who had had a few complications but was back home again, was getting along. As he was packing, he called Kay to their bedroom window. Anthony had dug a big hole behind the swing set and was standing over it, alone, head down, praying. It's a funeral for his coonskin cap, Kay explained. You're kidding. Don't be angry, she said. I'm not angry. I'm. He couldn't seem to come up with a word for what he was. I think it's sort of sweet. The cap costs $4. Unless there's something more you're not telling me, we can afford $4. He paused. Obviously, there were other things he wasn't able to tell her. They both knew that. That's not the point. The $4, obviously. Oh, really? So what is your point? Anthony was burying the cat. Kay knew, less out of sympathy for a dead raccoon than because several months ago on TV he'd seen a senator from Tennessee wearing such a hat, campaigning for president and denouncing Michael Corleone, among others, by name. Buying the cap had been Michael's idea, not Anthony's. Anthony rarely seemed able to tell his father what he did or didn't want, and Michael meant well but was oblivious. This whole matter wasn't something Kay wanted to get into with Michael, not right now. Michael sighed, resigned. Think that's real raccoon fur he's wearing? He asked. Or rabbit? She kissed the top of his head. He forced a chuckle and went outside and joined Anthony. Kay watched. They stood on opposite sides of the hole from each other. Anthony looked down and didn't seem to be saying anything. At a center point, he broke into Ave Maria. Michael heard him out. He could have hardly looked more uncomfortable if he'd learned his son was actually a little green man from Mars. It was while Michael was on a trip to New York that their half-finished house at Lake Tahoe burned down. Tom Hagen, who was back working as the family lawyer, walked over to give her the news. There had been a lightning storm. The insurance should cover everything, he assured her. There had been no damage to the foundation. Kay had done such a good job of making all the decisions that they could simply hire a few extra crews and rebuild in no time. Also, there was a mansion in Reno, a castle really, that used to belong to a railroad baron. It was being torn down to make way for a modern hotel. and Kay could have any of the fixtures she wanted. Once Kay saw this place, Hagen said she'd end up thinking the fire was a blessing in disguise. Hagen knew she'd been hoping to move this summer, so he had talked to the head contractor, who seemed to think it was still possible to be done by Labor Day. You talked to him before he talked to me? Or you talked to me? He's our contractor too, for our house up there too. Does Michael know? He does. She frowned and put her hands on her hips and stood in the doorway and did not invite him in. As of today, she had realized she wasn't pregnant. As of this moment, it was happy news. I didn't actually talk to him, Hagen said. I left a message. With Carmela? Of course not. He left it at that. I know what you're thinking, he said. Don't bet on it. We're looking into things, okay? He said. But, rigging up a lightning storm, you have to admit that's pretty much God's territory. And we know it was lightning? We know it was lightning. And how do we know it was lightning? Did anyone see it? I know you're upset, Kay. I'd be upset too. I am upset. And so is everyone up there. Did anyone see it? Behind her, Mary started crying. Anthony dropped to his knees, threw out his arms, and burst into a song first introduced to the world by a melancholy cartoon jalopy named Dudley.